right, you guys, we're back to satiate my appetite for One Piece polls. That's right. I held 9 more of these bad boys in the past week, and we're here to go through all the results and have a grand old discussion. If you're wondering, Sai, why do you like polls so much? It's because I am just one person. I have my own crazy theories and thoughts, but like I said, I'm just one person. I'm just one vote in the pond, and that is why I think it's always good to see what everybody else actually thinks. So, to kick things off, we're going to hop right into this. The first poll I held this week is, of course, in regards to Loki and what he's going to do after Elbaf. So right now, there's a lot of Loki for Nakama talk out in the community, right? People think that Loki's going to join the Straw Hats. I personally think he might join Herald, who, by extension is a part of the Straw Hats. And yeah, I just wanted to see where people are at, and it looks like it has the overwhelming majority of votes. Of course, I just updated this poll 3 hours ago. It only has about 2,000 votes right here, but I think this is pretty indicative of what the grander community actually thinks, right? 71% of people think that Loki will join the Straw Hats to some extent. And I think there's a good reason why they think this as well, right? It's not just because, oh, Luffy asked Loki to join. No. I think this is based on the mural as well, right? Because when we got the Harley text in the mural, we saw that Loki was one of the main depictions on the left side. And they were fighting alongside Shirahoshi and Sun God Nika and a plethora of other characters. So one way or another, Loki will be fighting against Emu. That is my own personal belief. I do think that the left side of the mural that we saw is of current day events. So yes, I do think Loki will ally with us and not with these other groups. But of course, we're going to go over them nonetheless. So second up right here, we have Solo Rider taking that spot at 17%. And I think this makes sense, right? Loki is very much so inspired by Rocks D Xebec. He told Luffy that Rocks D Xebec to him is like what Shanks is to Luffy. So yeah, if that is the case, if he really does want to follow Rox's will and Rox's pathway, then maybe he does go solo dolo. Or maybe Loki actually starts his own pirate group. I think that'd be pretty cool, right? Because Shanks inspired Luffy to become a pirate, maybe that is what Loki does. He leaves Elbaf and he starts recruiting other giants or recruiting other pirates that are humans or maybe buccaneers or whatever races are out there, right? I think that'd be really sick. Unfortunately, though, if Loki does start his own pirate crew, will we actually see them by the end of story? Because you gotta remember, guys, we are in the final saga. Is there really enough time for Loki to gather a crew for it to be meaningful in the current story? I don't think so. I think if Loki does end up making his own pirate crew, we probably won't see them until the end of story time skip. We're jumping ahead 30 years into the future and we see like an old Luffy and old Zoro, and then that's when we'll see Loki, quote, in his prime with his gang. Because Loki, of course, is a giant, and as such, he doesn't exactly abide to human lifespans and human time. So yeah, maybe that's the case, but for now, I think he will ride solo. I think this is a solid second pick if he doesn't just outright join the Straw Hat Grand Fleet. So third place, this one started picking up some traction because of last week's chapter, but people are saying he could join the Blackbeard Pirates. And of course, that is because Blackbeard is the son of Rocks D Xebec. I think this makes a lot of sense. Obviously, hey, I couldn't join Rox's crew, so maybe he would join the next best thing, which would be Rox's son. I think the issue with this, though, is that the Rocks crew that Loki fell in love with, that is comprised of Whitebeard, Shiki, Stussy, later Big Mom, later Kaido. I feel like if Loki were to join the Blackbeard crew, there's no real telling if Loki would like Van Augur, Basco Shot, San Juan Wolf, Shiryu of the Rain, and etc., right? It's one of those things where it's like, they're more sort of like a replacement for the Rocks Pirates than the actual Rocks Pirates themselves. So while I think Blackbeard could be a valid candidate because he has that lineage, I do think that Loki might fall out of love with that group if they're too different from the OG crew that he knows and loves. So yeah, that is my thoughts on that. And then now, last place right here with only 2%, I put any other pirate faction. So this, of course, includes Shanks, the Big Mom Pirates. It includes Kid if he ever comes back. This also includes Cross Guild. And there's not too much to say about this one. right? We don't really know how Loki interacts with other pirates besides Luffy and Rocks. So this is just like pure fan fiction, right? Or whatever theory we cook up with this one, it's just all up in the air. I remember back in the beginning of Elbaf, a lot of people liked the idea. Okay, I lied. There might be like 10 people out there who really like the idea that Loki would join Eustace Kid. You know, Kid's a little bit of an outcast. He just lost his ship. He lost the majority of his crew. Maybe if he wants to come back as a force, he brings Loki underneath his flag. Hey, guys, I love Kid as much as the next guy. But Kid and Loki teaming up, I don't know. That feels too crazy for me, right? Even as a Kid fan, that's a little bit too crazy. Would I like it? Yes. But is it plausible? Is that where the story's heading? I don't think so. You know, I am an avid believer, though, that Kid will make a comeback here in Elbaf. Because let's be real, if Kid is alive, he's going to be here, right? It would be absurd if Kid showed up on a different island when he was shown just off the coast of Elbaf. Like, that would be crazy, right? Like, Elbaf is literally maybe a 30-minute swim away from where Kid got destroyed. Of course, Kid can't swim because he has a devil fruit, but if somebody comes by and picks him up, or if a fish eats him, or if the waves push him over there, he's going to be in Elbaf. Kid showing up on a different island is just absurd because he's way too damn far from any other island. Egghead Island, for example, which was the next closest island, that was a 2 to 3 day trip. Kid's not making that. You know, Kid is not making that whatsoever. So, you know, I do think Kid will come back in, but as far as a Kid and Loki alliance, brother, if we actually want that to happen, we'd have to pray upon 3 lucky stars. So, let's look at the comment section and see what people are saying about this. First up, the top comment says, I feel like either he would be a Grand Fleet member or a solo rider. Given that he was inspired by Rocks and his ideology on weaklings, he might just perceive Blackbeard as cowardly if they ever even meet. I won't mind him being a Straw Hat Pirate too. Yeah, I mean, Blackbeard's a tough one, right? We don't really know what Rocks D Xebec is like, but so far, Blackbeard has mirrored Rocks to a good degree, so maybe Rocks fights in the same way as Blackbeard. I mean, we already know that they fight dirty, right? We had Rocks D Xebec stabbing Kid Loki in the back. You know, he pulled a blade on a little kid, and that's something Blackbeard would do. All right, so maybe they are exactly the same. Maybe Loki does enjoy the underhanded tactics. So, this one says, only Luffy's crew can fill the void that Loki has been missing. Yes and no. You know, it's one of those things where I feel like Loki just wants friends in general. And if in the past he accepted the Rocks crew as friends, and we know how they are, I think any pirate crew could fill that void. As long as they don't mind the eyes, I think they would fit the bill. What's the response to this? Yep, Luffy is going to make the Grinch's heart grow 3 times, yeah. I mean, Luffy would be the best at this, I will admit. You know, I'm not denying that. I'm just saying I think other people can do it too. But yeah, Luffy, definitely the best candidate to fill Loki's void heart. My gut is saying Herald is going to get a permanent buff, possibly Domi Reversi or Luffy's version, to match Loki's size. Loki plus Herald is going to be the new best duo on Elbaf. Oda loves the full circle moments, and Elbaf has always been dominant with 2 strong warriors, Yarul and his buddy Yorul. I like you just put his buddy, but yeah, his buddy Yorul, Dory, and Brogy. And what better duo is there than the Princes of Elbaf? I completely agree with this. This is what I personally believe the most, and that's that Loki and Herald are going to become the perfect duo. I don't know how that's going to take place. I have put my money on Domi Reversi because we've seen firsthand that regular giants will grow in size by a large amount, and I'm assuming they would end up being Loki's size. So this could be how Herald bridges the gap. And yeah, I would love it if the Princes of Elbaf come together to save Elbaf and to usher in the new era, which is exactly what King Herald wanted, right? We go back to one of the first King Herald flashbacks we got before we got the whole reveal of him, and he said, hey, Loki, Herald, I want you both to work together to make Elbaf great. So yeah, I hope that happens, and that will only happen if Herald, of course, gets up there in size. Because right now, Herald is like Ant-Man compared to Loki. Besides that, though, I do think that Herald has the best ship for Loki to sail on. You know, the reason why I don't think Loki's going to join the Straw Hat crew is simply because the Thousand Sunny is too small. Unless Loki has a devil fruit that lets him shrink, I can't imagine him joining the gang. Like, what are we gonna do about Loki? Is he gonna swim everywhere? You know, are we gonna have like a little floating device to lug him around? Like, I feel like that would just be way too inconvenient. And then, of course, making the Thousand Sunny bigger is not a great option, because at that point, it would inconvenience every single Straw Hat on board. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I think Hyruden is my favorite answer, but besides that, Solo Rider. So I do agree with this poll, pretty 1-to-1. So now, on to the next poll. Second one. What do you think of Buggy's lineage? Bro, ever since that chapter dropped, ever since, I don't know who pointed out first, but somebody said, oh, you know, if you cover one side of Rox's face, it's Buggy. It looks just like him. And because of that, it looks like the whole theory that Buggy is Rox's other son has been garnering a lot of attention. Of course, it's losing in the poll, but you gotta admit, 34% out of 5,000 votes approximately, that's very respectable. You know, this is not a negligible amount of people. People generally do like this theory. So, is it plausible? Is it plausible that Buggy is one of Rox's other sons? Yes. You know, I don't believe the theory, don't get me wrong, but you have to admit, there's nothing that exactly disproves the theory yet. You know, One Piece is weird, One Piece is wacky, we've seen crazy things happen before. I mean, hell, this Blackbeard reveal is crazy in and of itself. So if you were to tell me that Buggy is another son of Rocks D Xebec, I wouldn't really bat an eye. The one thing that would bother me, though, is that in this chapter, we saw that when Rocks was revealed, it said father of Blackbeard. It would bother me if this theory ended up being true, and they never said father of Buggy when we initially met him, right? Because I feel like Oda went out of his way to say father of Blackbeard. Well, at that rate, if Buggy's another son, why not also put Buggy there too? Of course, we've seen time and time again that Oda does like to hide details like that. So it wouldn't be the biggest of deals, but it would just be like a, you know, like, why didn't he do this? Come on. Oda, throw us a bone a little bit, right? So as far as this theory goes, I do like other iterations of it, where Buggy has Rox's will, or Buggy is actually following Rocks D Xebec's pathway, but he just doesn't realize it. Like how Buggy formed Cross Guild, right? When Buggy formed Cross Guild, a lot of people initially saw that and said, wow, he's kind of like the modern day version of Rocks, right? Gathering a bunch of powerhouses that typically won't get along together. Of course, right now, he just has Crocodile and Mihawk, but theories are running high on Cross Guild that Buggy will eventually get other Warlords of the Sea under his command as well. Whether it's Doflamingo, Gecko Moria, maybe even Weevil. People don't like Boa Hancock in there, but Boa Hancock could potentially join too. But yeah, you know, I think Buggy, even if he isn't related to Rocks, I think there are going to be some parallels there. And I think that'd be kind of interesting, right? You know, we have the real legitimate sons of Rocks D Xebec and Roger, being Blackbeard and Ace. And then we have characters who carry on those wills, which would be Shanks, and of course, Buggy. That'd be kind of cool, because obviously, I don't think there's anybody out there who would deny that Shanks is carrying Roger's will to an extent. So maybe Buggy plays the opposite role there, and he's actually the Rocks parallel. I know people don't like parallels in One Piece all that much, because they're kind of being spammed nonstop. It's like Oda's just ulting every couple of seconds with these parallel drops, but, you know, it's the final saga, man. Eventually, everything's gonna come full circle. So outside of the Rocks Sun route for Buggy, people do like the thought that Buggy is nothing special. That Buggy is just a regular person, regular strength. He's kind of like Usopp, but a lot more charismatic and successful. And I do like this, right? I do like that Buggy isn't exactly a Nepo baby, which is what people are saying, right? They're saying, oh, you know, all these pirates are Nepo babies, man. What the hell? But yeah, I do like that mindset a lot. I will argue this, though. Even if Buggy does have a special lineage, I don't think he's gonna have Nepo baby powers. Like, if Buggy actually is the son of Rocks D Xebec, I doubt he's gonna be like, oh, daddy, give me strength. You know, I doubt Rocks is gonna be over here helping Buggy with his bar no mi, like a father and son Kamehameha. I don't think that's gonna be the case. But yeah, I do see why a lot of people think that Buggy is nothing special. But I would argue as well that inherently he already is very special. And that's because of the nose. You know, Oda has come out time and time again and said that Buggy's nose is legitimate. This nose is real. You cannot remove it. It's not a part of his clown makeup. It is permanently there. So because of that, I think automatically he would fall into the special red-nosed tribe, if that's even a thing. Of course, it could just be a birth defect like Loki, but the nose is so odd, I almost want to just attribute it to a full-on tribe or clan. And another thing that's really odd about the nose, too, when we got the Joy Boy panel where he's fighting the 20 other kings and queens during the Vegapunk broadcast, there was this king or queen in the middle that has this weird bulbous shape right underneath their crown. And I'm not gonna lie, guys, maybe I'm too lost in the sauce here, but I think that's a clown nose, right? Like, other than a clown nose, maybe it's somebody throwing up their fist like this, and it's just a really weird angle of them. But yeah, so I do think that Buggy could be a celestial dragon because of that. Maybe he's a mixture of some of these options as well. But yeah, let's see what people are saying about it, though. Where are the common people? Nefertari D Buggy. Okay, that's crazy. I don't think he's related to Vivi or Cobra, but, you know, if he's a celestial dragon, man, you know, if he's another one of those babies, I'm cool with it. And the thing is, too, like I said, just because he is from a tribe or a celestial dragon or even Rocks' son, I don't think Buggy's going to get any crazy power-ups because of it. I think Buggy will always stay the lovable goofball that he is. If Buggy were to have, like, a special attack power showing, I think it would be with Shanks. You know, I think it would be pretty reasonable to say that Shanks and Buggy have a special dual attack because they grew up together. All right, so going back to the comments, this one says, not sure what would be funnier, if he has a super important and impactful lineage, or if he just learned his parents are the most nobody of nobodies. That'd be kind of funny too. Like imagine Buggy drops lore about his family, and he's like, oh yeah, you know, my dad was a farmer, and my mom was a milkmaid, and they just got together, and I was born. Like, that's his whole lore. Like, we waited all these years for a Buggy backstory, and that's what we get? That'd be huge. That would be pretty funny. What if the original Nika had a red nose? That'd be nuts. Well, actually, you know, Nika is all about laughter. Maybe the reason why that's the case is because he was a clown. I don't know if I like that. Ooh, I don't know if I like that. At this point, I don't see why people aren't okay with Buggy just being an anomaly. Not every one of the emperors has to be a special lineage to make an impact. I don't think people feel this way. I don't think people feel like Buggy needs to have special lineage. I think that's just kind of where the story's heading with Buggy. Like, because he is an anomaly, right? Yeah, he's charismatic and yada yada, but the nose, brother. Like, we gotta explain the nose somehow. Right? Like, why is it real? Why did Oda make that distinction? There's got to be more of him out there, right? All right, the comment right here says, we finally see Emu's full form, the bright red nose. No, we've seen Emu's nose. We've seen Emu's nose, and they have, like, a pretty long bridge. Kind of a Nell-like when you really look at it. Buggy doesn't need a legendary bloodline. He makes his own legend. None of the above. I think he is Joy Boy's descendant. Joy Boy's descendant. I mean, you gotta admit, Oda does love clowns, because even going back, I always bring this guy up, I love this guy, but going back to Romance Dawn, one of the prototypes for One Piece, the first villain was a clown magician. So they had magical abilities, kind of like Emu, they were just conjuring weapons out of nothing, but they were also dressed like a clown. So if you were to tell me that, you know, there's a clown person in the Void Century, man, I would believe you. But like I said, you know, I think people are so scarred by special characters like Blackbeard, for example, that they automatically assume that Buggy's gonna get, like, insane powers because of this. I don't think that has to be the case. I'm totally cool with Buggy being Buggy, but he has lore that he just probably doesn't care about. Brago is right. Y'all really want this to be Nepo piece. Hey, man, we don't want it to be that. Like I said, blame Oda, brother. Blame Oda for making this a thing. I love it. You know, I don't mind the Blackbeard Nepo piece, but, you know, he's the one writing the story, man. And so far, these guys are special lineage. So this one says, what power does Xebec have? Almost 5,000 votes, 4.5k. And look at this. It is very much split between all four options. Of course, Ope Ope no Mi is in last place, and I'll explain that here in a second. But in first place, we have a majority of people believing that Rocks D Xebec actually had the Yami Yami no Mi. 34%. If I'm being quite honest, I think this is where I'd also put my laurels. This is where I would rest them. And that's simply because of Blackbeard, man. You know, everything Blackbeard has done thus far, it has mirrored or lived up to Rocks D Xebec's legacy. How he acquired his crew, all the way to how he acts. I mean, the way he dresses. I mean, they look the same, brother. So if you were to tell me that the reason why Blackbeard was specifically searching for the Yami Yami no Mi was because Rocks D Xebec had that exact same devil fruit, I'd believe you. You know, I think this could be very plausible. There has to be a reason why Blackbeard wanted this specifically, and it could be because of Rocks D Xebec. Outside of that, though, it looks like second place is, of course, no devil fruit, which I do think is a really fun route. You know, I talked about this last video, but I do have a certain amount of respect for characters who are strong with hockey alone, right? They're just a guy who trained up that willpower, who trained their physique, and now they're one of the top of the verse characters. I would love it if Rocks D Xebec was that exact same way. And the thing is, you might be wondering, how does he fight then? Well, we do know that Rocks D Xebec had a saber, kind of like Roger, right? In the God Valley panel that we got from Sengoku, we saw the crazy Rocks D Xebec holding a blade up like that. So yeah, he could just be a fighter in the same vein as Roger, and that is why they were, you know, rivals. So third place though, they say that he has any other devil fruit, so this is something brand new, or perhaps something we've seen before. And yeah, this right here is essentially an endless buffet of options. He could have a mythical Zoan, Paramecia, Logia. It looks like people do like this route a lot, and I don't blame them. I would love to see a brand new power in the series, because like I said, I hate reiterating it, guys, but we are in the final saga, right? Our time with One Piece is limited. Since that's the case, why not bring in some crazy-ass powers, you know? Why not? Why not? So now, for the last place, we have the Ope Ope no Mi, and this is Law's devil fruit right here, in case you don't know the, you know, Japanese name of it. And the reason why people think this is because of the way Rocks is holding up his fingers at the end of the chapter. People see that, they see the chopped mountain in the background, and they're saying that Rocks D Xebec has Law's devil fruit. I don't think that's the case. Personally, I feel like the reason why he has the two fingers up is simply because he was asking Loki two questions. Of course, I could be wrong, you know, because this is exactly how Law does it too. But yeah, I think this is just Rocks D Xebec throwing up the number 2 to flex that he's asking two questions. But we'll see what the comments say about this one. Top comment, I already like this one. They say, did anyone else think Xebec holding up two fingers was just him emphasizing the two questions he was asking Kid Loki and not anything to do with him using a hand sign for the devil fruit ability? And yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at. And typically, I don't like to heart comments or comment my opinion down in the comment section, mainly because I don't want to sway the polls. You know, I want these polls to be unadulterated, untouched. I want it to be a virgin in the blue when I hop into these. You know, I don't have any sway. But I did have to throw this up there because I had some people message me and they're like, Sai, you believe in the Ope Ope no Mi theory? It's like, whoa, I didn't even say anything about this yet. But yeah, that's why I went ahead and just liked this one so people kind of knew where I was leaning. You know, I eliminated one option, but I kept the other 3 open. This says, if it is the chop fruit, then Roger came up with the Kamusari, an attack with a sword that doesn't actually cut you, just for rocks. Buggy upscale. Hey, Rocks D Xebec having the chop fruit, the bar no Mi, I gotta admit, that would be really cool. And of course, that would show us how the bar no Mi is supposed to be used. Because we have seen Paramecias go absolutely crazy in this series. The most recent example would be Gunko. Brother, Gunko is a menace with her devil fruit powers. The things she's able to do, speed herself up, you know, make people sleepwalk. She's able to create giant boots. She's able to create a living bird. Like, dude, Paramecias are on the come up, and if you're telling me that Rocks D Xebec has a perfect use case of the bar no Mi, crazy. And of course, we'd look at Buggy, and he would use it nothing like Rocks D Xebec, and now just be a fun play, right? I think that would be beautiful. This says, I would love if he had the bar no Mi. Oh, again, look at that. And he shows how strong Buggy could be if he trained some more. Yep. Kaido said that Haki was all you needed to conquer the seas. Maybe he wasn't just referring to Roger. Kaido was on Rocks' crew, maybe Rocks also had a mastery of Haki. I think that's true. I do think he will display an absurd mastery over Haki, but the thing is that just because you have great Haki and great uses of Haki doesn't mean you can't have a Devil Fruit, right? Imagine if you had both. That'd be crazy. I mean, hell, that's what Luffy is, right? Luffy has great mastery over Haki. He hasn't fully mastered Conqueror's Haki yet, but he's getting there. He's getting there. But alongside that, he also has a fantastic Devil Fruit. I mean, even with Kaido. Kaido was the guy who said this. Like, oh, like, Haki conquers everything. While he's also in his mythical Azure Dragon transformation, right? Haki, amazing. Haki is limitless. But you gotta admit, the buffer, the bonus you get from having a great Devil Fruit will also put you ahead in the race. Chop Chop Fruit, bro. Dude, everybody loves the Chop Chop Fruit. I'll admit, man, you know, maybe I should have gotten rid of the Ope Ope no Mi and put the Bar Bar no Mi up here instead. I mean, I'd probably vote for that. I don't know, wait. No, okay, I think I'd still vote for Yami Yami, but Chop Chop would be like my second pick. That would be my second pick. Let's see here. The Bar Bar no Mi would be dope, especially if he awakened it. Yeah. I mean, the funniest thing is that I don't know if you guys were around when people were making the Buggy awakening theories, but people were saying that, oh, dude, if Buggy could awaken, he's gonna be able to split an atom and create the largest bomb known to mankind. And I like it. You know, and then, of course, we have JJK with Sukuna and how he's able to cut things and chop things up. Brother, that could be Buggy. You know, Buggy could technically do that too. Buggy just has to lock in. He just has to lock in. Which, we don't know what Buggy's going to be like when we next see him, by the way. Right? Buggy has officially declared that he wants to become king of the pirates despite Mihawk and Crocodile telling him no. Buggy might be locked in. You know, maybe we'll see Buggy and he's buffed out the wazoo. He's not going to be Buggy the Clown anymore. He's going to be Buffy the Clown. So, going down, this one says, do you believe the theory that King Herald is Kaido's dad somehow? Almost 7,000 votes. Wow, people locked in for this one. 43% said yes, they believe it, and 57% said no, they do not. And guys, you might have to wipe your eyes clear real quick, but look at this. This is a picture of King Herald, and this is a picture of Kaido. Brother, they look so damn identical. You know, you might mistake them, but let me tell you, they're two separate characters here. So, real quick, I obviously have to give my thoughts on this. I do think that they're related somehow. It could be that King Herald is Kaido's dad. It could be that King Herald is maybe Kaido's uncle, maybe cousin. Yeah, I think somehow, some way, Kaido does have ancient giant blood. I think that's going to be the case. Here's the thing, right? I've seen people say that Oda just has that type of design for One Piece characters. All One Piece characters look the same. All females look like Nami. All guys just happen to look like Kaido. I don't agree with that, personally. Especially with guy characters. For female characters, sure. You squint a little bit too hard. Is that Nami? Is that Vivi? I'm not exactly too sure. But for men, Oda does lock in. For guys, we have the goofiest designs coming out of our gender, brother. I mean, hell, look at the Warlords, look at Blackbeard, the Yonko. Dude, the guys in One Piece all looked very distinct. So the fact that we have two characters who look strikingly similar, mind you, I don't think that can be a coincidence. I do not think this is a coincidence at all. And then, going beyond just basing off of appearance, I mean, we also have the parallel with Loki and Kaido, where Loki as a kid had a Kanabo, pretty much the damn near same Kanabo that Kaido had. And then, of course, we have the whole feat where Loki is jumping off of the Sun Realm, and that's something Kaido does to also off himself. They both jumped off Sky Islands for the same reason. Like, I feel like it's all right there. And then, of course, King Herald's wife, Estrid, the Queen Royal. She hails from a village called Alcohol Village. Kaido was born and was raised in Vodka Kingdom. Like, there's too many things to say that it's not connected somehow. Right? If it was just one thing, I could say maybe it's a coincidence. But everything, brother, in my good mind, I can't say that Kaido is not related at all. Maybe he isn't Herald's, official son. But maybe it's like a sperm donor situation. Maybe King Herald has like a brother on the side that just dropped some seed in Vodka Kingdom. I don't know, but you gotta admit, guys, like, I think even the people who voted no, I think even they kind of see the uncanny resemblances. So, let's see the comments real quick. I think they're related genetically, for sure, but there's too many differences for it to be pure-blooded relation. Kaido would also have to be completely unaware, since he probably would have mentioned it. Yes, I don't think Kaido knows. I don't think Kaido knows at all. I think if this is the case right here, if King Herald and Kaido are connected, this is going to be something Oda drops in an SBS, for sure. Also, another thing to keep in mind, too, is that Kaido does have a small obsession with ancient giants. And that right there is why he has the numbers a part of his crew, which were the failed ancient giants from Punk Hazard. Kaido and ancient giants, man. And then, of course, with Oni. With Oni, we do not know where this tribe or race stems from. For all we know, the Oni could have came from a mixture of ancient giants and humans, or maybe even buccaneers. And that is how we ended up with Kaido and Yamato and etc. That would explain the horns. The ancient giants had the horns originally, and then because they kept on mixing their blood with other races, we eventually ended up with this sub-race of Oni. I think that would be pretty damn plausible. Also, give me 1 second. I have salmon in the oven. I'm gonna go get that real quick. I think it's burnt. Let me see. How long have we been recording? Oh my god. Okay, it's burnt. Yep, let me go check. All right, so this was in the oven at 350 for about 30-ish minutes, and surprisingly, it's not that bad. Definitely overcooked, but still edible. I think this is just Oda doing the Nami thing. Just sometimes the characters look alike when a design is fire. I think this could be the case if Kaido and King Herald were women. But like I said, the guy designs in One Piece are so distinct that I feel like it can't be a coincidence, man. You know, the characters that look alike are typically related. I mean, look at Blackbeard and Rocks D Xebec. That's a prime example, you know? 1-to-1, father-son. And now go to Shanks and Shamrock. 1-to-1, they're brothers. We thought they were the same person for the longest time. Because Oda, you know, obviously hid the side of his face that wasn't scarred. See, I feel like whenever guys look alike, it's more than likely that they're related. I like to think that maybe Kaido was maybe part Buccaneer, and that is why the Marines were so interested in capturing and experimenting on him. Part Buccaneer. Yeah, I mean, maybe like Ancient Giants plus Buccaneers equals Oni. That wouldn't be bad. But I feel like we might just keep it easy and say, oh, it's Ancient Giants plus human. I think that could also result in a Kaido-like being. I don't think so. Mainly because Kaido ages like a normal human and not a giant. He wasn't even that big compared to giants. And look at Colin. He's just a regular giant even though he is mixed with a human. And yeah, that is true. Kaido does age normally. But I guess a counter argument would be that we don't really know how mixed breeding works in One Piece. Like maybe Kaido just didn't get the age gene from the ancient giants because he's mixed with humans. I mean, hell, maybe Kaido can live to like 150. Maybe he meets them somewhere halfway. This one says, if there's a third option on the table, I think he could be his brother-in-law or just in-law in general, since Estrid also carries ancient giant blood according to her intro. I also think we're about to see Rocks meet Kaido for the first time. That would be cool. Yeah, I would love it if we got the Kaido meeting with Rocks. I mean, even Big Mom meeting Rocks. Who else joins? Like Wang Ji would be kind of cool. Captain John would be awesome. Like, I really hope that we spend a lot of time with Rocks D Xebec. I think that'd be phenomenal. But imagine that, though. Like, if we start following Rocks, he would commandeer the Elbaf backstory. Like, at that point, it's not even an Elbaf backstory anymore. It's just a Rocks D Xebec backstory, which I think would be hilarious. This one says, you know, the whole King Herald is Kaido's dad theory makes a lot of sense. Just look at them. They've got this uncanny resemblance with their similar faces, expressions, and even the epic beards. Yeah, dude. We got the King Herald beard in this chapter. Brother, that's Kaido's beard. That's crazy. Oh my god. Plus, both Herald and Kaido have strong ties to ancient giants, which really makes you wonder if Kaido got his giant-like features from Herald's lineage. Oda's been dropping hints about Herald's past and how he had kids with both giants and humans, so it's totally plausible Kaido could be a half-giant descendant. The timing of Herald's introduction and the focus on Elbaf after Kaido's defeat also feels like more than just a coincidence. It's not confirmed yet, but the puzzle pieces really seem to fit, making it a theory many fans are totally on board with. Yeah, That's generally how it is. And the thing is that I don't think this has to impact the story in a big way. You know, going back to like how I feel about Buggy, if Kaido were actually King Herald's child, stepchild, or etc., I don't think this would actually matter. You know, I could totally see this being a fun little detail in a Vivre card or maybe a data book or an SBS. I don't think this will actually play like a significant role. It's just going to be one of those fun things that fans pick out and Oda confirms like 2 years down the road. All right, so this poll, it says, which faction are you most excited to see fight? So the origins to this poll is kind of funny, actually. This spawned from a stream I did over on Twitch at Syvduck. I was playing a good old horror game, and somebody said, hey, I can't wait to see Dragon fight. And I said, okay, me too. You know, I cannot wait to see Monkey D. Dragon lay down some mean knuckles. But if Dragon fights, that means we're going to have to see the rest of the Revolutionary Army fight, and I'm not exactly too excited for that personally, right? You know, I love Sabo, I love Dragon, but aside from them, I'm not really big on morally. I'm not big on Karasu or Ivankov or Lindbergh even. Or even like those vice captains that we met who are just in the background. You know, I'm excited for Dragon. But I was like, I wonder, you know, if we had to go faction to faction, could Dragon carry the Revolutionary Army in the poll? I didn't think so. You know, I thought more people would be excited for Cross Guild with Mihawk, or the red-haired pirates with all the vice captains, or maybe even the Blackbeard pirates and see how they fight all together with their devil fruits and awakenings. But I was wrong. I was dead wrong. Dragon did carry this poll. Well, I guess I don't know that for sure. We'll look at the comments, right, to see what people are actually excited for. For all I know, people are excited for Giron and Ushiano and Ahiru. But yeah, I think Dragon just destroyed this. He destroyed my mindset about this whole dynamic here. And this is why I like polls. Like I said, I did not think that the Revs would win, but I stand corrected. I am wrong. Dragon's popularity, I believe, is off the charts here. So again, like I said, with the Red Haired Pirates, aside from Shanks, we'd see Ben Beckman finally fight. We'd see Yasop, Lucky Roo, Hungo, Building Snake, Lime Juice, Bonk Punch, Monkey, Rockstar. I'm trying to think. Did I get everybody? Howling Gab, that's another one. Okay, I'm kind of curious. Did I get all the red-haired pirates? I wasn't counting. Red-haired pirates. I'm going to be kind of sad if I missed somebody. So I pulled it up right here. It might be not the best way to look at it. Actually, no, I think this works, right? Yeah, 1-to-1. Yeah, okay. So we have, yes, Shanks, Ben Beckman, Lucky Roo, Yasop, Lime Juice. I didn't say Lime Juice. Yeah, that's my fault. Bonk Punch, Monster, Snake, Hungo, Howling Gab, Rockstar. Okay, yeah, I got him. Wow. I think I only missed the Lime Juice. That's a big W. I'll take it. And then for Cross Guild, of course, if you're excited for Cross Guild, you're excited for Mihawk, the world's strongest swordsman, to finally make a move and have more feats past Marineford. And then, of course, there's Crocodile. I don't know how many people are that excited to see Crocodile again, but I personally am. You know, Crocodile, confirmed to have observation and armament hockey. And hell, if Oda were to give Logia Awakenings out, I think Crocodile will be a phenomenal pick. Dude, the Sand no Mi Awakening? Ooh, yeah, that'd be fire. And then, of course, not just that, but Crocodile now has a new bounty of 1.96 billion berries. I do want to see if he deserves that, because that is an abnormally high bounty. Brother, look at King, look at Queen, look at Sanji, look at Zoro. Crocodile has a greater bounty than them. What? Huh? I mean, I get it, right? Crocodile, former warlord, he has the chutzpah, but man, 1.9 billion? Does he have the strength to back that up? I am curious. So as far as the Blackbeard Pirates go, I think the reason why they're in last place is because we kind of know how they fight already. We saw them fight Garp, we've seen them fight Law, and I think people are thinking that they may be capped out right now. I think a lot of people believe that the Blackbeard Pirates will be very powerful when we fight them, and when they get their awakenings or second devil fruits or whatever. But for now, I think people just aren't super excited for them. I'm kind of curious, you know, if I were to hold this poll again today, would the numbers change? Now that we know that Blackbeard is Rocks' son, maybe the Blackbeard Pirates will go up 10%, but I'm not too sure. So let's look at the comments here. Dragon's first named attack will shake the world, yeah. I mean, this is what people have been waiting for. You know, I can't even complain about losing in this, because this is true. A lot of people are looking forward to the day when Dragon stops looking east. Dude, the amount of accounts on Twitter, the amount of YouTubers who will go insane over Dragon's first named attack, insurmountable. That would be an uncountable number, brother. People would go ballistic over Dragon finally fighting. You know how like JD Legend, love Jay by the way, shouts to Jay, he was going crazy about the Blackbeard Rocks D Xebec reveal. I was watching the live stream, man. Jay was losing his mind. Bro, the minute Dragon lands an attack, we're going to see that same effect for so many other people too. Yeah, people are going to go freaking crazy. This one says, I want to see Dragon pull out a pitchfork and solo all of the Holy Knights. All right, that's a little bit too much. Solo all the Holy Knights? No. I'll give Dragon 3 Holy Knights, you know? we can't have him stealing the show that hard, right? The Straw Hats still have to fight somebody, man. Come on. If you voted Revolutionary, then you literally just want to see Dragon do something. Because we've seen the Revolutionary Army fight more than we have the red-haired pirates. And yeah, like I said, this is just Dragon and Sabo carrying the poll. You know, nobody's talking about Sabo yet, but I do think that Sabo plays a big role in this. You know, Ace 2.0, people are looking forward to his awakening. People are looking forward to Entei, and I don't blame them. I do not blame them one bit. But yeah, aside from Dragon and Sabo though, like I do like Ivankov a lot, but I feel like we've seen everything Ivankov can do. Like at this point, Ivankov is just spamming Death Wink, right? Ivankov is spamming Death Wink. Inazuma is cutting up roads and throwing it at you. Morley has a... Morley's kind of cool. Morley has a pitchfork, and they can just, like, dig in the ground, but that's pretty much it. Lindbergh, I think, is the worst out of all of them. He's just walking around with his steampunk technology. And then on the other hand, we have Bello Betty, who's just a support character. She's just standing in the background, waving her flag, and that's it. Like, can Bello Betty even fight? I don't know. I mean, they didn't even bring Bello Betty to the Reverie, so, you know, maybe not. Maybe not. Wait, is that true? Did Bello Betty not go to the Reverie? All right, yeah, so I went ahead and just fact-checked myself just in case, and Bello Betty was not even at the Reverie, bro. She was just chilling at Kamabaka Queendom the entire time. But yeah, who else am I missing? Oh yeah, Karasu. I like Karasu. Don't get me wrong, I think Obella suit is a really cool technique. I think the Sutsu no Mi in general is just awesome. But like I said, I'm not like excited to see them fight per se. I'm just not. And then Oda introduced the vice captains, and they're even worse. You know, maybe I'm just a hater, but yeah, I'm not like big on the revs minus Dragon and Sabo. This one says Dragon needs that Madara moment. Just when I see Dragon unleashes Conqueror's Haki. Ivankov said he had it at Marineford on Marie Joie. Dragon and Mihawk doing something will shake the foundation of Agenda Piece. Dragon carrying the rest. Bro, everybody's just about Dragon. The Revolutionary Army's emblem is so cool. It looks like the dragon from Mulan. Does it? Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. It's actually funny because when I first saw the Revolutionary Army logo, I didn't see a dragon first and foremost. I actually just saw boobs. There's a boob right there. There's a boob right there. And it's like Valkyrie armor or like, you know, women's armor. But yeah, no, now that I know what it's supposed to be, yeah, it's a dragon. A very interesting design for a dragon, mind you. Right? Like, look at the big lower jaw. And then it has like 3 horns atop of its head. I feel like there's definitely going to be a deeper meaning behind that logo later. Like maybe this is inspired by Luffy's mom. Maybe Dragon has a transformation that looks like that. Or maybe it's a play on a different symbol that I'm not familiar with. But yeah, it's not a bad logo. Not a bad logo. Dragon should be in his own category. We've seen most of the refs fight already. I want to see Mihawk in action. For a faction, I really want to see the Red Hair Pirates going all out, especially Shanks, Lucky Roo, and Monster. For a character, I really want to see Dragon going all out. I can't wait until he hits Emu with that Eastern Impact. Crazy name, Eastern Impact, huh? Damn, people really want to see Dragon fight. Huge W. I'm itching to see my man Dragon in action, finally, but I'm really excited to see Cross Guild again, especially with S Crocodile, S Flamingo, and S Gecko on their way there. The latter two should have their respective OG Devil Fruits, but I'm curious about what S Croc will have, since OG Croc has a Logia. Yes, that is still a big question. To our knowledge, Vegapunk did not give the Seraphim Logia abilities, so S Croc will have something brand new entirely. But yeah, overall though, I agree with this. I think Dragon winning the poll makes sense. Personally, I'd probably put my money on the red-haired pirates, but yeah, dragon carries. I'm not even that mad. I'm not even that mad. So how many polls do we have left? Got a few more. Okay, we're gonna start speeding through this. My salmon is getting cold. This one says, which warlord out of these are you most excited to see again? Number 1, by a large margin, is Doflamingo. To be expected, right? I feel like a lot of people love Doflamingo. They love Dressrosa. Maybe not the pacing, but they love Dressrosa in general. His fight with Luffy, where Luffy debuted Gear 4th for the very first time, was amazing as well. So yeah, the Heavenly Demon taking the number 1 spot with 67% of the votes. Yeah, that falls in line. Second place, of course, is Boa Hancock. We do know that she is on the move. You know, obviously she could not stay at Amazon Lily because Marines would keep on attacking her village. So she left, and she did say she wanted to go to Luffy. We don't know where she's at currently, but I think she could make a move pretty damn soon. We could see her here at Elbaf even. We do know that the newspapers printed that Luffy just left Egghead. So maybe Boa Hancock is like, oh, you know, Luffy left Egghead. The next island would be Elbaf. You know, I feel like if you're looking for Luffy, then the newspaper would have just provided you with some golden information. So we could see Boa here. And she is a Conqueror's Haki user. You know, I think we cannot sleep on that. We know that the God Knights could only be harmed via Conqueror's Haki as of right now. So if Boa Hancock shows up, W. Absolute W. And Boa Hancock, get this, guys. She was a slave in the past. She has genuine history with Marie Joie. So maybe if she comes here, she will recognize the Holy Knights. And she would want to lay some whoop-ass on them. I would love that. You know, people are saying that could get too dark, but let's be real here. You know, Boa Hancock stomping out her former oppressors, W across the board. Same with Bonnie. You know, introduce Bonnie's real dad, have Bonnie beat him. Please, Oda. And now, tied for last place, we do have Weevil and Gecko Moria, and I'm kind of sad about this. I'm not gonna lie. So personally, if I had to put my vote in, dude, the good old GM. The good old Moria, the shadow monster, brother. What are we talking about, dude? Oh, I love Gecko Moria. I also love how he treats his crew, right? He was a ride or die for Absalom. Brother, he went all the way to Hachinosu to fight Blackbeard to get his boy back. And then guess what? He found out that his boy was dead. Oh my god, yeah. Dude, Gecko Moria, he needs to come back. You know, he needs a glow up. We do know that he has that dog in him, too. You know, if Moria just kept on training, he'd be a menace. Moria clashed with Kaido in the past at Wano. Bro, that was a skinny Gecko Moria. That was Moria in his prime. If he just never gave up that ambition, he could be a demon. And here's the thing. I think he's becoming that demon as we speak. And the reason I think this is because his best friend just died. Like I said, Absalom's gone. Gecko Moria, he wants revenge. Gecko Moria was being held in Hachinosu as a prisoner. Kobe made a deal with Perona to break him out. We didn't see Gecko Moria. You know, we assumed that Kobe already did it, and that's why Kobe was later seen upstairs, and we never saw the prison ever again. Kobe's not the type of guy that breaks his promises, so I do think that Gecko Moria was released. And if that's the case, I think there is a big reason why Oda did not show Gecko Moria. This is going to sound stupid, but I truly believe that Gecko Moria pulled an Uncle Iroh out of the Avatar. I think that he has a prison body. I think he's going to be very powerful. And maybe he can even awaken his Devil Fruit. I mean, his Devil Fruit cannot be scoffed at, right? We gotta remember, the world government wanted Gecko Moria dead post Marineford. Why was that? Is it because he's a bum? Maybe. Or maybe because they knew how big of a threat his Devil Fruit actually was. Brother, I'm betting hard on Gecko Moria stocks. I really am. And in the same vein of Gecko Moria, I am also betting on Weevil stocks too. Weevil, just like Gecko Moria, I think could get a liposuction buff. You know, because obviously Gecko Moria, he's kind of pushing a pretty big weight right there. So if he were to train, he'd get a lot slimmer, a lot buffer, yada yada. I think Weevil could be the same way. And just like Gecko Moria, we did not see Weevil last time he was mentioned. Weevil ran up against Green Bull. Green Bull beat Weevil. And that's it. That's all we heard. But why didn't we see Weevil's body? Why didn't we even see a panel of Weevil fighting? Well, that's because I think Green Bull pulled out his signature move on Weevil. I think Green Bull sucked Weevil off. We saw how effective that was on Shinobu. Shinobu, a plumper lady. She was sucked off by Green Bull, and guess what? She reverted back to her prime for a couple of chapters. You know, she turned into this beautiful, mature woman yet again. Brother, if Green Bull gave that treatment to Weevil, imagine what he could look like today. Imagine if he actually looks like Prime Beard. Oh, yeah, that'd be fire. Yeah, that's what I want, man. Give me some Weevil. Give me some Gecko Moria. Give them a chance to come back. Give them a chance in the gym, brother. So, outside of this, though, you know, even though they are all in separate categories, I feel like if they were to come back, it could even be all together. Right? If they were to find a home, I think it would be with Cross Guild. Maybe not Boa Hancock. You know, Boa Hancock's a really iffy one. She could join Luffy. She could join Cross Guild. But in general, though, I think we will see all these boys in Cross Guild. So now, oh yeah, I didn't even look at the comments. Yeah, look at me. That was kind of mean, huh? Everybody's commenting and I just ignore them. This says, I'm in the minority, but if Weevil comes back built like a Whitebeard after what Ryokugyu did, that's almost the same like Whitebeard in his younger days. Yep. I want to see if Moria did an Uncle Iroh, trained in prison, and now he's back at his peak again. Look at that, dude. Look at that. I talked about this. They're here too. I got support today, guys. I got the support. Dofi would be the perfect addition to Cross Guild. That is true. And the thing with Dofi too, you know, Dofi did say that he wanted to work with Crocodile back on Marineford. Well, who has all the cards now, right? It's Crocodile, dude. So if Crocodile were to go to Impel Down, if Crocodile really wanted an extra fighting force, more military might, he'd break out Doflamingo. And of course, another character that should be in Impel Down is Weevil, right? Weevil just got beat by Green Bull. Weevil could be there. We could be eating that 2-for-1 special. This says Moria, because he brings with him Perona. Boa needs to return because we really don't know how strong she is. Dofi, comeback is going to be insane. Doflamingo, and not even close. Considering where he's been kept, him breaking out would be so much fun to read and watch, and the amount of knowledge he has on the gods and the whole band. Juicy, juicy lore. Yup, dude. Doflamingo, he knows what the treasure of Marie's Raw is. Yeah, bring him back. This is a very relevant character. Doflamingo, yeah. Lore-wise, yeah, I would say lore-wise, Doflamingo, he stomps the pack for sure. Lore-wise, I'd say Doflamingo, and then maybe Weevil, Gecko Moria, and then Boa Hancock last, unfortunately. Well, I don't know. Boa Hancock's knowledge as a slave, that could go hard. Okay, let me redo that. Doflamingo, Weevil, Boa Hancock, and then Gecko Moria in terms of lore, for sure. Gecko Moria last place, but hey, he's still number 1 in my heart. But yeah, last thing I do want to say about Doflamingo is that he too was wronged by the Celestial Dragons. He too wants revenge on them. Dude, his whole game plan was to work with Kaido so that Kaido would destroy the world, essentially. He wanted to rip the Celestial Dragons down from their perch. Yeah, Dofi, bring him into the final war. Hell, Dofi would even work with Luffy at that point, in my opinion. You know, if Luffy said, hey, I'm gonna go attack Marie's Raw, Doflamingo would say, please, Luffy, take me with you. I could see it. As stupid as that sounds, he'd want to join. Moria, not because of the main story, but the flashbacks. He did have the corpses of Ryuma and 2 Rocks pirates. I want to know how he got them. Basically, Doflamingo is just too cool and too much for Oda to keep him locked away forever, right? We want to see him again because he's got all this juicy info about the WG, the Celestial Dragons, and maybe even the One Piece itself. Stuff that could totally blow the whole story wide open. Plus, he's just super fun. Menacing villain with a crazy past, and seeing his string no me powers again would be awesome. Whether he breaks out of Impel Down, gets dragged into another big event, or just spills some secrets, everyone's hoping he pops up again because he makes everything more exciting. Everyone is sleeping on Gecko Moria. He's the dark horse. You never know what he'll do next. He might join Cross Guild or help Luffy. He could even betray everyone and try to go for the One Piece again. He's my unpredictable king of the pirates. I love that. What does it say? Moria, Diddy, Hancock, and Weevil in that order. My god, he replaced Doflamingo with Diddy. I want to see the OG Warlords interact with their Seraphim. Jinbei didn't really have much of a reaction to his, but the other three are more family-oriented, so they should care more, yeah? I could totally see that. I think it'd be really fun, by the way, if they take on the Seraphim as their vice captains. Like imagine that, right? Like Doflamingo and Doflamingo rolling up to a party, Gecko Moria and Gecko Moria rolling up to a fight. Like, dude, that'd be so stupid. That'd be so crazy hype. But of course, obviously, getting the Seraphim under your command, that is the main problem there, because they still are being controlled by the Gorosei at this point in time. So let's go down a little bit more. I think this is the last one. Oh, no. Close to the last one. We'll skim through this one. I'm not going to stay here for too long. Old theory check-in. Do you think Tom is alive or dead? The reason I ask this is because of Galley Ra in the latest chapter. We now know that ancient giant shipwrights existed at some point in time, and they were also taken in by the world government. Some of them were experimented on, some of them were frozen at Punk Hazard. We don't know if that was all of them necessarily. But yeah, I wanted to see how people felt about Tom. Are they experimenting on him? Are they trying to extract Pluton information? We don't know. It's one of those cases where he should be dead. You know, I do think Tom should be dead, but it's One Piece. You know, I hate to say it like that, but it is One Piece. Until we see a dead body, until we see a grave, I think he will always live in the 50-50 realm. And that's where I'm at personally. Even though I think Tom being alive would be crazy for the lore and the implications, and even for Frankie and Iceberg, I think it's 50-50. I do think if I had to pick one, I'd prefer him to be dead, but I could see how him being alive would be pretty cool. So now, let's just look at some comments. They say, that picture is outrageous. I mean, that's what he would be, right? I mean, you can't let all that blubber go to waste. Plot twist. Tom is the man marked by flames. He is sailing Roger's ship coated in black. Tom, being alive would be so outrageous that Oda would do it. Yeah, exactly, man. See, he sees the vision. If he turns out to be alive, then he's a good candidate for being the man marked by flames, assuming the flame mark came after escaping. One Piece lore, unless you see a dead body, they are alive. Tom is alive, too valuable. And they never said he was killed. Frankie will meet his master again. I don't read spoilers anymore, so this is my old theory. My theory is that he is the man marked by flames, he is a fishman, and the road poneglyph was in Fishman Island. He can build ships, so I think he can build a black ship that can make whirlpools to sink other ships. That'd be pretty cool. You could even say that this is a Pluton ability, right? Maybe he took some mechanics from Pluton and implemented them in his ship. And one thing funny about this is that we saw Tom's brother or cousin back in the Sea Forest, back in Fishman Island, and that is where the road poneglyph was supposed to be. Maybe that was a hint all along. I don't think Tom is the man marked by flames, but I can see how this theory would make a lot of sense. All right, it's kind of silly, in my opinion, that we see Tom's brother-cousin in the same place where the poneglyph is supposed to be. So now, for the very last poll, is this one it? Yeah. No! We have another one! Damn. We've been going for over an hour. Okay, we'll save this one for later. This will be in the next poll discussion. Sorry, guys. Man, I'm hungry, dude. It is... Look at that. Oh, sorry. It is... Come on, phone. 6:34 a.m., dude. It is late. I'm tired. I'm hungry. We're gonna call it here. What was Dr. Kureha in the past? And I put in parentheses to remind you guys that she's the first character to have ever mentioned the Will of D. And not just that, but she also knew Roger's real name. The first character to mention it. She said Goal D Roger, the first one. The first one. I think that is crazy. So I threw up this poll. You know, is she just a doctor, a pirate-warrior, holy knight-celestial dragon, or was she a marine-other? Which other means pretty much anything, right? Archaeologist, maybe she was a plumber, maybe she was a farm lady, we don't really know. But I threw this up, and it looks like 62% of people believe that she was a former pirate. I could see it. I do think that Dr. Kureha has that dog in her, because lest we forget, it was a small detail. I only remembered it because I'm rewatching One Piece currently. I'm on Alabasta right now. It's going pretty good. But Dr. Kureha kind of implied that if Luffy and the gang weren't going to fight Wapol, she was going to do it. You know, I don't know if she was bluffing. I don't know if that was like a last resort kind of thing, like a Hail Mary. But she did say that she would pack Wapol up. So I'm like, yo, like she's a fighter at the bare minimum. So if I had to put my money down on one of these votes, I personally think that she was a former Celestial Dragon - Holy Knight. The reason I say this over Pirate is simply because Dr. Kureha is so damn old. I think right now she is 141 years old, maybe 143 if we include the time skip. I think it is 141 though. But yeah, Dr. Kureha right now is the oldest living human. We don't know how she does it. You know, she's time and time again referenced that there is a secret to her immortality, but nobody has cared to ask about it, right? Like imagine a character actually said, hey, Dr. Kureha, how do you live to be so old and yet so young? And she's like, oh, actually, it's because I have the mark of the abyss. Or, oh, it's the celestial dragon bloodline. Like, I could see that being the case. You know, as silly as that sounds, Oda does like to turn gags sometimes into relevant plot points. And of course, she's not going to be a nobody because she knows about the Willa D. You know, the Willa D isn't exactly that well known. So Dr. Kureha knowing about that, being the first character to talk about it, I think is meaningful. I think that is very meaningful. Another reason why I do go down the Holy Knight rabbit hole is because people generally refer to her as a witch doctor even. And we do know that witches and warlocks and magic, that's kind of becoming a thing with Emu, right? Obviously, I don't know if Oda would be that on the nose, especially back in the day, which granted, they called her a witch back at the Reverie, which was like 200 chapters ago, so it's not that far off. But yeah, like Dr. Kureha being referenced as a witch time and time again, I think could play in with the Holy Knight Celestial Dragon angle. But I think my theory's kind of flimsy. Right? I mean, I think all Dr. Kureha theories are pretty flimsy in general, because we just don't know too much about her. Also, one cool thing about Dr. Kureha that I found out the other day, let me see if I can pull this up on the wiki real quick. One Piece Dr. Kureha. But apparently she has a very unique laughter. And they're saying that her laughter is a reference to an old anime show about a witch who commands a bunch of yokai. Okay, so this is her... Yeah, this is her wiki right here. And apparently it's a reference to this show, which is all about yokais and monsters, and her laugh is a reference to the main character. And I'm like, yo, yokais, monsters, witches? I mean, brother, that is screaming Holy Knights to me at least. And then, of course, her favorite food and drink are plum wine, umeboshi, plum sake even. And we do know that umebozu is a popular emu theory, so maybe there's a tie-in there. But again, like I said, it's all really flimsy. I acknowledge that. You know, I know my theory isn't exactly concrete. But yeah, as far as this poll goes, I would drop my nutsack right here on Holy Knight - Celestial. But of course, I think Pirate - Warrior is pretty acceptable too. I think saying that she's just a doctor might be too mundane for her. Like, would just a doctor know this much? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that just the doctor route's the one that I'm not exactly high on. But let's see the comments here. I used to think she was a member of the Rocks Pirates, but since we didn't see her among them in God Valley, I think she's just a badass doctor who learned about the D's by traveling the world. Okay, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, doctors could learn about it by traveling the world. That's fair, that's fair. Or maybe she even was a part of a pirate group that was before Rocks D Xebec and Gold Roger even. She kept asking if we wanted to know her aging secret. It seemed like a joke, but now we know about Emu being at least 800 plus years old, and Kureha said to be 100 plus years young. Makes me wonder if it's from medicine, ope fruit, or just her not wanting to die, so the people she lost don't truly die alongside her. Pragmatic, greedy, rough bedside manner, knows how to handle an axe, intimidates most of the Straw Hats, shows the same kind of parental love that Zeph does, GTFO Chopper, definitely a pirate. Yeah, I can see that too. I loved the Chopper farewell. You know, now that I'm going through One Piece again, I just got reminded of how much I love Dr. Kureha's goodbye. Kureha and Zeph goodbyes, top tier scenes, man. The whole thing where Dr. Kureha's like, hey, you're a man, Chopper? Yeah, right. And then she's like chasing him. And then, of course, we have like the Sakura blossoms that pop up afterwards. And then Chopper's like, you know, I kind of feel bad for Dr. Kureha. Oh, no, I lost my bag. And then we come to find out that Dr. Kureha packed his bags for him already. And then he starts crying. Oh, man, that always gets me. And then, of course, for Zeph, right? Sanji's trying to leave on this bad note because, you know, Baratie was role-playing bad guys. So that Sanji would have to leave eventually. And then they're not talking. And then boom, in the 11th hour, right before Sanji steps onto the Straw Hat ship, Zeph says, don't catch a cold. Brother. Yeah. Damn near gonna bring tears to my eyes. This one says, I think the simple-easy answer is that Crocus learned from her on Rocks' crew, or that she was the lead doctor on Clover's crew. Edited this to correct myself. Crocus learned from her. No, I got you, brother. Yeah, I don't mind this. The hard part is that Kureha is so damn old that I don't even know if she's from this generation. That is why when we entered the King Herald flashback and we were like, what, 100 years in the past or something, I thought we'd see Kureha. You know, I'm like, yo, Kureha is so old that she would be in her prime during this flashback. But we haven't seen her. You know, and then of course with the Rocks crew in this chapter, we don't even see her with them. So I don't know, man. I do not know how Kureha is going to fit in. She was quick to throw weapons. I definitely think she has some battle history. Just not sure if it was tied to being a pirate or tied to a holy knight, but her old age is leading me to think that she knows more about that life. Kureha's power level is so underrated. By the One Piece treatment of old characters, she was a part of a strong crew, no doubt. Also, she just took Drum Castle like nothing. I wish we got some explanations on her story for the final saga. And yeah, me too, brother. I feel like we will 100% get more about Dr. Kureha in the canon story. Right? For some of these other things, I'm like, oh, it's probably going to be like an SBS reveal. But I feel like Dr. Kureha's story will be important. Like, let's be real here for a minute. You cannot be the first character that talks about the will of D in the story and not get that explained. Right? You cannot tell me that she is not going to be an absolute monster. And we've never seen her fight truly, right? She did, like I said, she did say she wanted to fight Wapol. If Sanji and Luffy weren't there, Dr. Kureha, in my opinion, would have kicked some ass, man. But with that being said, though, guys, thank you so much for joining me on this adventure. Thank you for voting in all these polls. Like I said, because it's too late, I don't want to tackle the Admiral Logia Awakening thing yet. We'll tackle this in the next poll video, which will be next week. But yeah, until then, you guys take care, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out, guys.